Hello there everyone, it's me KSL of KSL Tech Studios and I am back again with another video. And as you can see in front of us today, we have a whole assortment of parts to get going for our brand new Hackintosh build, as you can see here. So, what are we going to build this machine with? Well, so going from left to right, we have the Gigabyte H370 HD3 ATX LJ1151 motherboard. I bought this motherboard mostly because it was ATX. It was relatively inexpensive, and it didn't have any of the features that I didn't want, and all of the features that I did want. So there you go. Pretty basic board, H370. People on the r/Hackintosh subreddit have had pretty good luck with it, so there you go. Over here we have 16 gigabytes of DDR4 2666 memory by Crucial Ballistics. Again, 16 gigs of RAM. That's what I need to get some of my video editing done for this channel, as you can see. So that's what I need. 2666 is the highest that the Intel platform can support at the moment, so there's no real need in going any faster than that. And it was also the cheapest set of DDR4 that I could find that was made by one of the manufacturers that I was familiar with, Crucial being one of them, obviously, so that's fine. Down on the desk there, you see that is a 1.5 terabyte WD Green hard drive that you are all most likely extremely familiar with, as I've used it on many past builds, and this is being carried over from my last Hackintosh. I'm using it as an archive drive this time to keep all of my long-term YouTube video archive and my software archive and my other general video archive. So it's going to be used for archiving files. And the main drive for this build will be that SSD that's right down there. You probably can't see the name on it. I'm sorry, but I'm keeping the camera angle fixed because I need to keep all this in shot. But it is an SK Hynix 500 gigabyte SSD. I originally bought it in 2017 to use with my ThinkPad. Ultimately, I don't use the ThinkPad as a daily machine anymore, so I don't really need this much storage in it. So I thought, why not just use it for my Hackintosh and save a bit of money, because I don't need to buy another drive. However, we'll see, because of the fact that this motherboard has M.2 slots, 3 of them actually, that can go, 2 of them that can go up to a 2280 drive, and one of those 2 can go up to 22110 drive, I believe. So you can put a pretty long SSD in there. And that other slot that I said, these were 3, the last slot is only for Wi-Fi, so I can't really use that one for anything, and it is only 42 millimeters, or it might be only 30 millimeters, I'm not entirely sure, but it's not of use to us. And right back there, you can see is the piece de resistance almost, the MSI RX570 Armor 8 gigabytes OC card. The reason why I bought it, it is natively supported in macOS. No ifs, ands, or buts. I needed something that worked. Also, I wanted a DGPU for this build because I didn't want to deal with having integrated graphics, because integrated graphics, while they're okay, they tend to age a lot more aggressively than dedicated cards do, because dedicated cards, even years in the future, still remain better than the integrated graphics built into certain CPUs of that time period. So that's probably why I picked some sort of dedicated graphics card. Right there, we are using a Core i3-8100 CPU yet again in this build. Now, why is that exactly? Well, last time I picked out an i3-8100 mostly because it was the cheapest Intel CPU going, and it had 4 cores, and the person who I built the computer for, which was a family member, really didn't use their computer for anything processor intensive, so that's why I picked it. For myself, I picked it because, well, I didn't really need more than 4 cores either. We'll see how it performs, and if it really is not good for my workflow, I will consider changing it to an i5 and getting rid of this one somehow. I kind of bought it more for temporary because of the Intel shortage going on right now. So I did overpay a little bit for that CPU, but it wasn't like a significant amount. So it should be fine. That over there in that box that you can't see and is completely unbranded is the wireless card that I bought for this build. Now, many people will say, oh, why do you need a wireless card? Don't you use Ethernet anyway? And I'm like, well, I do, but two reasons. Number one, Bluetooth. Bluetooth is very important for me because I will be using some Bluetooth peripherals with this computer in the future, most decidedly a keyboard and perhaps a Magic Trackpad, so I needed Bluetooth. I don't like any of those USB Bluetooth thingies because they just seem really kind of shoddy to me and might not work very well in Mac OS. And wireless. Well, why do you need wireless internet? Because of two particular features in Mac OS, that being handoff, continuity, and airdrop. That's three features actually, but whatever. Especially airdrop. I use airdrop as part of my daily workflow to transfer pictures between my iPhone and my Mac. Now, my MacBook Pro has a built-in wireless card, obviously, as it's a Mac, and it supports airdrop between Mac and iOS devices, which is wonderful. However, I need that in a desktop because I want to be able to do all of my desktop-y type things on a desktop. So that was the reason for picking out a wireless card. I picked this one up off of eBay. I will put the link below, as well as a CA.PC parts picker list for all of this other stuff that I bought and all my other parts that I'm using in the bottom below, just so you can see what I'm actually using in the build, because I'm not exactly going into extreme detail about these parts, so that's that, and you'll be able to see current prices for it as well. Back there, in the very back, is my case that I'll be using for this build, and it is a Corsair 100R. Now, why the 100R specifically? Well, it was the cheapest Corsair case I could find. I didn't want anything fancy, and I couldn't use a micro ATX case, and I did get rid of the one I used on the previous build, so obviously that wasn't an option, but I wasn't considering using it anyway due to the design issues that I found with it from the last time I built in it, so that's why. So I ended up going for the Corsair 100R because it has a clean look and it has two front USB ports that are both USB 3. Most cases I've seen have one USB 3 and one USB 2 in this price range, which I absolutely despise because I do want to only take up one USB header for the front USB ports and not two, because this motherboard only has two USB 2.0 headers on it and one USB 3.0 header, of course. And one of those USB 2.0 headers will be used for the wireless card because it does have a built-in USB cable. Hence why I would have preferred a case that had two USB 3.0 ports rather than, one of each. Hence Corsair 100R. Hopefully it'll be a decent case to work in. I haven't opened it yet, so we'll look at that together. Up at the top there is an optical drive. Now, I did plan to put an optical drive in my other Hackintosh build, however, it really didn't want to work. Just due to the case design and the motherboard design and everything, there was a serial port header in the way of where the optical drive slid into like this, so it kept colliding. So that's unfortunate. Hopefully this case has a bit more room and the motherboard is a bit better designed, so hopefully we can get that in there, because there are certain times, even though it's not often anymore, that I do like to put an optical disk medium into my computer, either to burn an OS disk or to read a software disk of some type, even though all of my software is in digital form. And finally, as you can see up at the top, is the power supply I'll be using for this build, since my green Antec power supply is now serving its duty in my father's build. I bought this Master Watt 550 bronze because it was a decent voltage. I couldn't have anything under 500 watts because I wanted to keep a nice ceiling for potential upgrades in terms of processor and perhaps more drives, and in the future a better graphics card, and I also wanted it to last a good long time. I bought this one also because it was semi-modular, and that way I won't have cables that I don't need in the case, just lying around, which is a good thing. And also because it has a 5-year warranty, which is very important to me because there are certain times when I value that in a product, especially when it is from a brand I'm unfamiliar with. I've not really used any Cooler Master parts at all. This is my first time, so hopefully it'll work just fine. And it does look like a robustly built heavy power supply with a large fan, and it does boast that it is semi-fanless. However, many people say that it's not exactly the best. It's only when it's at 15% load that it's semi-fanless and whatnot. So, with all that out of the way, I think it's time that we take a look at the case. We'll unbox the case and we'll take a look on the inside. Alright, so here's a case, Carbide Series 100R, as you can see. So let's just rip into the packaging then, at this point. People are always keening comments for our Alrighty. Alright, here it is, in all of its Corsair glory. There's styrofoam, which I'm probably going to be reusing actually, to use it as a stand. Oh, it just goes over the top and bottom. Okay, so it comes out like that, and the case is coming out the side here. You can see. Here it is in the bag and everything. Oh, and there's the instruction book. That's nice. We'll see where the screws are in a bit. So, here it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out and put it up on the desk so we can take a look. Alrighty, so there it is, guys, in all of its glory here. The Corsair Carbide 100R mid-tower case. So I'll just show you around. So this is the back. The back is just plain. It has a single pre-installed fan, however, it's not PWM, it's only 3-pin unfortunately, so that kind of sucks. I was thinking it was going to be PWM, but it's not. Back here we have the slot covers, which are all meshed, and fortunately they are not the type that was on my Thermaltake case that broke out. These all are screwed in, as I can see right here, so that's very nice. Down here we have the power supply hole, and the power supply has its own dust filter, which will be very handy for us as our power supply is the modern type that has the large fan on it. And this fan back here is most likely a 120mm fan. So this side is the motherboard back side, so we won't open that up quite yet. Here is the front panel. The power button is this nice looking modern thing, and it has like both together, power and reset, and it's very nice feeling. It reminds me of HP computers. They have something similar to that, where it's just kind of this line. We have the audio jacks, which are nicely metallized over here. Most of the cheaper cases I've seen just have those like cheapo plastic ones, so this is very nice. This right here are the two USB 3.0 ports. It's nice that all the ports are in the front and not on the top, because on the top they have a tendency to accumulate dust. Here that's less likely, and we have two 5¼ bays here for optical drives and whatnot. This plastic, I'm not sure what kind of texture it has. It's almost like a non-stick texture, but it's not gummy. I think it's just a very nicely textured plastic, which is very nice. I hope it stays like this for a very long time. Over here is the side panel, which has a single side window, which is plastic. Over here is two slots for a fan, or for two fans, or your water cooling radiator. This is pretty good for those monoblock type radiators, all-in-one systems, which is very nice. So I'll just take the thumb screws off. Well, they cranked it down pretty hard, that's for sure. That came off. So we won't take this side. I don't think I'm going to take this side plastic off of the outside. Probably never. Okay, here it is. So here's the inside plastic. So we'll leave that there for the time being. I'm going to just move this side panel over here. Okay. Here is the inside of the case. It looks very nice, I will say that. These are all of our front panel connectors bundled neatly over here. And in one of these drive cages, actually not in one of the cages, but near one of these cages. So this is the drive cage. So you can mount either a 3.5 inch or a 2.5 inch drive in here, no problem. So here is one of the drive cages. And that's rather clever how they put it in the drive cage box. I have never seen that on any of the cases that I've bought. But then again, I've only bought like 3 computer cases in the past, so I'm probably not one to judge. So we'll take it out of its block here. I wonder, it can't be glued in or anything. No, it just kind of fits in, which is interesting. So I'll put this drive cage back. The drive cages, you can put obviously 4 screws for the bottom of a 2.5 inch or for the sides of a 3.5 inch, but it almost looks like 3.5 inch drive can almost fit in here with these plastic pegs. Nice, and they do kind of clamp firmly into place. This looks like also some kind of quick release for the optical drives as well, which is very nice. So let's open up this box here. Alright, so in here we do have just all the screws, and we do get a few of these zip ties for cable management, and it looks like all that's in there at the moment. So, what about the cable management in this case? It does look like it is very, very comprehensive. Most ATX boards go all the way out to here, so all you get are really these slots, but these slots look rather deep, even going into the back plane of the other part of the case here. So hopefully that should be enough to mount to put all of your wires, but if it's not enough, we'll certainly find out together. So I'm going to undo this wire tie here, and we'll take a look at the inside of this case together. So, alrighty. So these are all of the connectors for our thing. Here is the audio connector, front panel audio. That's good to have, of course, for your headphone jacks. To be honest, I've hardly ever used it, but it is a nice feature. Here is the USB 3.0 header. I'm not going to make the same mistake as I did last time, where I plugged it in and then yanked it out, and then it took the little plastic shroud with it. So I hope that doesn't happen again. Over here we have all these little front panel connector boogers. So that's just great. I'm probably going to route these better than they did here. So you've got power LED, power switch, your hard drive LED, and your reset switch. That should all be very nice. And here, and this is your audio, as I had mentioned before. So your power supply just goes right in the bottom here. Big 120mm fan. Unfortunately, it's not PWM capable, which is very sad. But we will have to make do with it, I would hope. Okay, so that's it for the case, I would think. I don't think I missed anything. Oh yes, you do have some space for 2 additional intake fans right here behind this, behind the hard drive caddy and over here. So these can take, I believe, both 120mm and 140mm fans. And on the side, this is where your air intake filter is for the air intake into the case. So instead of having it look really hideous on the front, it'll look somewhat hideous on the side. But hopefully that should be very easy to clean, and this front panel should be somewhat easy to remove as well. However, we will get into that once we start building. So I'm going to clear off some more stuff off my desk, and I'll look at the instruction manual, and I think without further ado we will start building the actual computer. Alrighty, so while we took a look at the case, that is not what we are going to do first. The first thing that we must do is obviously take a look at our motherboard and put the CPU into the motherboard before it's in the case. So it's obviously much easier to do that. Just take a look here at our motherboard first of all. So we have two serial ATA cables. Very nice, very convenient that they added these. Two of them, which really it's not a lot, but it's enough. And this is the motherboard itself. I already took it out of this box, so hopefully it shouldn't be too impossible to remove now. It's very heavy, especially on the I/O connector side. So we'll put that to the side just for a moment here, and here is the actual manual for our motherboard. And inside of here we have the I/O shield. Now, one thing that's interesting about this I/O shield compared to the one that I had in the other computer, the other build we did, also with a gigabyte motherboard, is that this still uses the traditional little metal tangs for the ports, compared to that one having a little like squishy pad almost here to do the same thing. So I have no idea why they went back to the old style on this, or if they just had it laying around or something, so I'm not entirely sure, but obviously that is necessary for your motherboard. And in here we also have a driver CD for Windows users. However, that is not of much use to us. So I think I am going to just open up the motherboard here from the back. I'm going to use a knife, though, to cut this tape. Okay. It is out of the anti-static bag. Oh dear, it has a smell. Alrighty, so there it is. Our motherboard has been taken out of its bag and it's been put on top of its box. So, that is it. That is the whole motherboard right there. All in its LJ1151 ATX glory. Oh, and it's already covered in stuff. I don't know. Already dusty. How great. Oh well. Guess it's time that we get into our CPU at this point, so we'll break the seal on that. And we'll open it up. So we still have the stock cooler, and we've got the little manual, which comes with our little Intel sticker, but I don't know if I'm going to be putting that on this build or not. And there it is, our CPU. So I remember doing this last time. It was very stressful, so I'm going to do it again, and that's just going to be great, isn't it? So, there's the socket exposed. Now we're going to open up the CPU with that. Carefully grab the CPU, grabbing it by the edges. We'll just carefully drop the CPU onto the socket, and then just do this. As we wrench down on this thing, it should come right off. So that is it. Our Core i3 has been installed in the motherboard itself, which is very nice. So, next thing is to add the stock cooler. Why stock cooling this time? Well, I didn't feel like spending money on a cooler, and this one should do okay for what I'm trying to do with this computer anyways. So let's hope that it works for the time. Alright, so there is the CPU fan header installed. That is all for the motherboard at this time, which is all I'm going to do is install the RAM, but at a later time to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to skip ahead. I'm going to bring the case back in here and we'll try to install the motherboard in the case. Alrighty, so this is the case. All I'm going to do, I'm going to put the I/O shield in. As it snaps like that, you know it's been installed properly. Just checking all these little tangs just to see that they won't interfere with the motherboard. So I don't think adding the motherboard in the case right away was the best course of action. I think first we should take a look at the power supply and install it in the board. Install it in the case rather. So just a quick user's guide, the power cable, which obviously is going to be useful for turning it on, and this is our big bundle of wires that we will be dealing with later on for peripherals and serial ATA and whatever. So this is the power supply unit itself. As you can see, Cooler Master, Master Watt 550, big boy here. Big fan. It's decently heavy. Especially impressive because there aren't as many wires coming out of here other than just the CPU 8-pin header and the 24-pin power header. So I'm going to move this out the way, and we are going to install this. Alright, so there it is. I aligned it inside the case here, so now all I'm going to do, I'm going to find the screws and I'm going to screw it down. Alrighty, so there's all the screws done. All that, so now I'm going to unbundle this. So hopefully now I can install the motherboard, but this might be a bit harder because I'm running the power supply wire underneath the motherboard itself. Okay, that looks like it's in now. Hopefully, yeah, motherboard's nice and tight, that's not going anywhere. So now, what's the next part? We are going to plug in the 24-pin. So I didn't manage to get the front panel off, but I did just be able to go in through the back of that optical drive slot and just kind of grab the blanking plate there by the back because of these large tabs. So I think that's what they were envisioning to do rather than to actually take the front panel off. So I didn't end up taking the front panel off. I just slapped the drive in. It's completely toolless, which is interesting, so props to them. And yeah, I did manage to put it in. I plugged the power in, so we're good to go there, I guess. I'm going to put all my spare drive caddies back in here, and I'm going to start installing drives over here. I'm going to start doing the front panel. We'll have to see. Alrighty, so I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start running the serial ATA data cables now. I'm going to find the data cables. Oh, there they are. That came with the motherboard, and I'll be using both of these. My other camera its battery has since died. I'm going to be moving on to using my Olympus camera, unfortunately, so that means you're going to have to deal with some worse audio quality here. But this is the wireless card that I bought. Here it is. So I'm going to be installing this in the interest of, because I will need to cable manage with this card. So I did already remove this little protective thing here. So I'm going to remove this slot cover. Alright, so I tried my best to unbend it, but it's still somewhat bent, and it should be making a good enough connection. But unfortunately, the I didn't have enough USB cable length from this card to actually route it through my case, so that kind of is unfortunate, but we'll live with it. Oh, and if you ask why didn't I put it in any other of these slots, it's because I want the antennas to be up here rather than interfering in my display connectors, because these antennas are really big, and hopefully these antennas have enough gain on them or whatnot to work with the wireless in the location where it'll be, it's going to be under my desk. So here's another one. Leave that to the side. I'm taking these two slot covers out because of my graphics card that I'll be putting in here. So that's going to be fun. And I do like this motherboard more than the i3-8100 one that I bought, the mini ITX one, because it has an actual coin cell battery, which is good for replacement. So here it is. The graphics card. I'm going to open it up right now, if I can only find my knife. There it is. So I'm just going to open it. There we go. There we go. Here's some more opening goodness. I guess we'll just rip into it then at this point. Okay, so here it is. This is a very big card. Oh dear, there we go. Thank you for choosing MSI product. That's very nice. Alright, so here is the cooler. Do I actually need the power connector on this, is what I'm trying to find out as well. So we'll see. If I need PCIe power, that'll complicate things more. But we will find this out once we get going with this. Okay, here is the card. Oh, that is a big chungus here. So, there it is. I better remove this part because of the fans. But it's a pretty long card. It's an RX570, as I stated before. So here's the card edge connector, so I'll take that off for sure. How do I do that? There it is. My desk is slowly becoming more and more of a mess, if you can tell. So that's it right there. Okay. Alright, so here we go. Okay, there it is, it's in, officially. So there we go. It's in. Now I'm going to screw it down with the built-in screws here. Okay, so that is it for the slots. Now I'm going to check the users. Hi guys, it's me, KSL of KSL Tech Studios, and I'm back again with an update to my Hackintosh video here, even though it's probably only going to be in the same video. Today we're going to be installing some more cooling upgrades, including a brand new CPU cooler, the Deepcool Gamax 200T, which is the cheapest tower cooler that I could find on Amazon, that also has a PWM fan, which I need because I can't stand non-PWM fans in a machine that I'm going to be using day to day. As well as we're going to be adding a second fan to the front of the machine. This is an Arctic Cooling P12 PWM. This being the cheapest 120mm PWM fan that I could find, at least on Amazon. It was about $10, and it does have the standard 4-pin PWM connector. I'm using both of those. This is the machine here. I obviously have it all on the table. I've been using it for about a month and a half or so, and I don't have any problems with it. But I'm not ready to show the software configuration because I'm going to be doing a few more experiments just to see what I can do with it. So that's kind of my reasoning for not wanting to show you it quite yet. So without further ado, I think we're going to just open it up. Just 2 thumb screws on the side here. So first thing we're going to need to do is just take the side panel. Okay, so the side panel is off. So the next thing is we're going to ground ourselves, obviously. Just touch the power supply. And we're going to remove the old CPU cooler. Just kind of adhered with all the thermal paste there. So yeah, that is quite a bit of thermal paste, but it is spread out fairly evenly. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to get some isopropyl alcohol, we're going to clean that all off. Give you a better camera angle here for you guys. So I'm just going to start cleaning it off with a paper towel first without anything on it. And then afterwards I'm going to put some isopropyl alcohol on it. So we're going to unbox our Gamax 200T now. So apparently this CPU cooler is very easy to install. There's no back plate that you actually need to screw in. It just uses a ring that you will plop into the motherboard, similar way to that stock cooler, which is both easy to install but also has the added disadvantage of being less stable. So here it is, all in the box. You have the main heatsink unit here, which is covered with the thermal paste, and this is the cable for it. It does have a 4-pin connector, as you can see, so should be PWM capable as long as your motherboard supports PWM, which most of them do, especially nowadays in 2019. So here's the packaging, and as you notice there is no instructions in the actual box as I shake them out. They are actually just on the back of the box because they're really easy to do. So what they're saying is on the actual ring piece itself, this piece, put all of the holes to the most outer position, which I will do on all of them. So this is the outer for LJ1155. For 775 you want them in the lower position, but I don't know of many people who use 775, and it doesn't matter which way it goes in because there's the mounting clips on all parts. So there you have it, your LGA 1155 or 1151 rather mounting for this cooler. And the next thing you're going to do, obviously you're going to unpackage it with the thermal paste. And then they say that you always need to install a cooler with the fan facing the RAM slots, so that's what I'm going to do. And then you have one little tab here and another little tab here. For any of you with AMD systems, you'll be experienced with them. So now we're going to move on to the next part, which is the fan. So we're just going to open it up right here. And this is the fan itself, 120 mil, and you get 5 screws with it, so that's cool. So we're going to need this to be our intake fan, so I believe it will have to be pointing this way, into the case. So just try to find a good orientation to put it in. I think this looks like a good orientation here. Alright. So about 25 minutes later, with me being increasingly more frustrated, the fan is installed. That basically involved me taking off this entire hard drive cage here to access the 2 bottom screws, and then really just kind of forcing the screws in through these holes that just don't seem to be very easy to put screws into, unfortunately, so that's it. And I have cable managed it, so it kind of looks a bit nicer there. So there you go. Here's the fan. It's the Arctic P12 PWM fan, and I did end up using the screws that came with the case and not the screws that came with the fan, because they're a little bit tapered on the edge to make it a little bit easier to get in and out of this case. So that's why, but it is installed, and I do have it plugged into the SysFan 2 header. So that's very nice. So the next steps are to get the front panel back on and the optical drive. So I'm going to power it on, and then in the next part of the video I'll kind of explain what I did to the computer. It's me, KSL of KSL Tech Studios, and I thought I should finish up my video on my brand new Hackintosh project, which has been my personal computer for about the last 2 months. So here it is. It's running perfectly fine. I've upgraded it to macOS 10.14.6, the latest release of Mojave as of the filming of this video. And it is considered a 5K 27-inch iMac from this year, 2019, meaning it is using the iMac 19,1 SM BIOS. Of course, as you will know from watching the earlier parts of the video, 3.6 GHz Core i3-8100, 16 gigabytes of RAM. However, it's only being detected as 2400 because the Core i3 does not support RAM any higher than 2400, even though the RAM does support 2666. And of course, we're using a Radeon RX570 by MSI with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. So here it is. Now, the very interesting saga I went through with getting this thing to work. So the first EFI that I made, I did try to use this particular SM BIOS. However, no, I did not. I ended up using the Retina 4K 21.5-inch iMac SM BIOS, but that I don't think went very well, since I actually ended up forgetting to put the emulated NVRAM UEFI driver into Clover, so then I was complaining as to why my sleep didn't work. I kept putting in different drivers and whatnot into Clover, but sleep still didn't work. I ended up enabling the help of a user on Reddit. You can see that whole saga. I'll post a link down to my Reddit post in the description, who gave me their EFI to use, and that worked just fine. That got my system up and running, and that's what I used up until about a week ago, when I finally decided to tinker around with it again, and I managed to get this SM BIOS working. My problems that I had with that other SM BIOS was it was the iMac Pro 1,1 version, which, even though it worked very well, my fundamental issue that I had with it was it disabled my integrated graphics, which, as you can see here, is now currently re-enabled, and it also made the CPU power management quite a bit wonky, which was not very good, making my computer run rather hot, which I didn't like, because why would you have a hot running computer when it can run cool and nice? So hence I wanted to go back to this, but I was just afraid I would break something again. So what I ended up doing was I installed 1014.5 on a spare SSD using the CFI, and then I realized that it worked. So I ended up migrating it over to this one, but I had to sign out of iCloud and sign back in again, and hence why my serial number on this machine is covered, because it is actually registered under iCloud under my name, and I don't want people stealing that, because then it might, screw up something in the installation. Here's Intel Power Gadget. The CPU is running very, very well, so that's very good. We do have both hardware acceleration available for both H.264 and HEVC video in Video Proc here, which is kind of regarded by the Hackintosh community as a good way of knowing that that's working. And of course my UHD graphics is also being detected, which is very nice. So there we go. Show you the Geekbench scores here, how much my computer has been benching. So this is the compute score, which is pretty high. It's not ridiculously high, however, it's enough for my needs. It does wipe the floor with the MacBook Pro 2014 Retina version that I've been using recently. Yes, I know there's no video of that, however, that video didn't turn out quite the way I wanted it to, so I don't know if people still want it, I could put it up, but I was just not very happy with it, so I didn't use it. So that's the compute score for the RX570, and apparently has 32 compute units, but I don't think that the maximum frequency there is quite correct, as I do have a GT 1030, which runs at a much higher clock rate than that, so I think it's just kind of some Hackintosh weirdness. Here is the CPU score. I'm not going to say it's horribly high, but it is a little bit higher than my MacBook Pro 15-inch with a Core i7, so that's pretty nice. I honestly don't really need that much processing power, and especially because I didn't want to pay, ridiculous sums of money with all that Intel shortage drama that's actually still going on up until this day. It is similar to my MacBook Pro, so I don't really mind it. All I basically wanted was a computer that I could upgrade and use into the future, so I could basically upgrade my storage and my RAM as I go, rather than buying a Mac Mini with 16 gigabytes of RAM and then being stuck with that, and being stuck with also a very paltry SSD, and being forced to purchase external storage that uses Thunderbolt, which I don't really want to do, because Thunderbolt storage, especially where I live, is very expensive. So again, it's just better to have something where I could pop in just a standard set of SSD and not worry about it. So that's the Geekbench scores here. So what are the future plans for this machine? Well, I think the first future plan is to get it updated to Catalina once that is officially released. Yes, I know people have been installing betas, but I don't really like putting betas on a machine that I use day in and day out, especially because I am now a university student and I don't want that to be any kind of a problem for me going forward in terms of stability and whatnot. And with this EFI, I haven't encountered any stability issues yet. However, with the previous EFI that I did use, I did have 2 occasions where the system would just randomly lock up and would not respond to any mouse inputs. Like, the mouse cursor would move around, but when you would press on any of the buttons, like any icon on the dock or any icon in the taskbar, it would not respond at all. So the only way to get it to work again was to basically hold down the power button and force shut down which I don't really like doing, but that was how you had to do it, unfortunately. So I hope that with this EFI it's not going to do that. I hope. I'm not entirely certain, but maybe the use of the Intel graphics again will make it so that way the system becomes more stable in terms of sleeping. It seemed to happen one time when I left the computer in sleep mode overnight, and then after I woke it up in the morning, a few hours later, it completely locked up. The second time, it didn't have anything to do with that because the computer was just turned on, and it was pretty much in use the whole time up until the time that it locked up. So if anyone has any idea as to why those lockups happen, I would really love to know. I don't really know if macOS provides any log files about that kind of thing or where they are, but honestly I can't remember what days that it happened anymore so that I can find it, so oh well, we'll have to think about that. But there wasn't anything like you would see on a normal Mac with that power button and please hold down the power button to turn off and reset your computer kind of thing, which did happen a few times before in my on my iMac when I used to have that machine. But so that's probably interesting. However, again, let's just hope and pray that it doesn't happen again. So, another few updates that I thought I would probably do to this system would be to add a 1TB SSD of some kind as my primary boot drive in order to migrate this 500GB SSD to a Windows drive, just a dedicated Windows drive, because I know a lot of people have been having issues with doing partitioning and dual booting Windows with a partition, and I don't have any more SSDs, unfortunately, because I gave my other spare one and put it in the other system that I built, as you've seen on my channel. So I would like another one. That might be NVMe, as this motherboard does have 2 slots capable of NVMe throughput, especially because one of them is Intel Optane. However, I'm not entirely sure if Intel Optane is supported on macOS, but I don't think I'll be going the Optane route. I may end up buying some kind of Samsung 970 EVO because people say it's a pretty good drive, especially if you just update the firmware on it. It'll work properly in macOS, so hopefully that'd be good. Or I'll just get a 860 or 870 QVO, which are pretty cheap, but that won't be happening till the holiday season when prices really start to fall. So that should be an interesting project. And then the next project further down the line, which might happen in conjunction with my Media Center build, which I did do just in January. However, I mean, it is quite old, even though it is running quote-unquote newish hardware, will be to update the CPU in this to perhaps an i5 if I can find one used for a good price, and then take the i3 out of this and put it into that system. Or, well, we will have to see. Either do that or I build it with Ryzen. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do next. So yeah, this is my brand new desktop system. I thought I would show you the monitor that I'm using. Yes, this is a new monitor. This is an LG, as you can see, LG 27UL550. I bought it at Best Buy quite a while ago. I bought it in, I think, May-ish. So it's been around for quite a long time. And I did actually use it with that home theater system, and I turned that home theater system, which was my old Hackintosh, back into a Hackintosh with High Sierra, and used the NVIDIA card to get it to display for full 4K Ultra HD resolution over HDMI, which I knew the card was capable of that. However, there have been kind of conflicting reports on High Sierra as to whether or not it supported it, but I was happy to announce that it did actually work and it didn't require any special drivers or whatever to get that to work other than just using the standard NVIDIA web drivers. I did get myself a brand new keyboard. This is a mechanical keyboard in Aoki, or as Tecmo likes to say, Aoki. A mechanical keyboard, so it has these Cherry MX Blue clones. Sound very nice. It's been a pretty nice keyboard to type on, and I like it because there's no lip around the keys, meaning there's no way that dirt can get trapped in this kind of area. So if you really just want to clean it, you just pull all the keycaps off and you just blast it with some compressed air. But I haven't gotten to that stage yet. And I also like that this back plate here is actually made out of metal. However, this bit where the branding is actually made of plastic. So that's nice. I've got out my USB 3.0 hub again that I used for my Mac Mini, and I have that hooked up. I found this little iPod dock at the thrift store. This is actually an original Apple universal dock. These have been quite expensive on eBay, so I ended up finding one of those for a very good price, and I was happy that I got it. And these are the speakers that I've used since 2015, I believe. These are JBL Pebbles speakers, and they're hooked up via USB. So whenever you turn the dial on the side, the macOS built-in volume HUD works. So that's very nice. And finally, I do have a Logitech. I'm not sure what the model number is exactly, but it is a supposedly 1080p webcam, but I think it only defaults to 720p when you're talking over Skype. And I've been using this Logitech M705 Marathon mouse for quite a long time. And however, I do have the receiver plugged into this extender cable just to get some better range out of it compared to having it down in the computer. Because unfortunately, I've just been having so many issues with these mice. Not myself personally, but my family members have been having multiple problems with these things in the house. There's something odd going on with radio frequencies in this house. I'm not sure what it is, but I digress. So there it is, my new setup. This is where I'll be editing all the videos for the channel coming up. I do have plans for another 2 videos coming up till the end of this year, and then in 2020 we'll have to see what I come up with because, you know, being a student, you don't have much money to deal with, especially because I don't work full-time, so whatever. So thank you guys for watching this epically long saga of a video about my brand new video editing Hackintosh for 2019. Hope you all enjoyed it. Feel free to like and subscribe and leave a comment if you have one.